At the farthest edge of the world lies Antarctica, a land wrapped in snow and silence. Its surface is buried beneath ancient ice, some layers more than 2 miles thick, pressing down with the weight of countless ages. Winds sweep across the plains with a voice like steel, and in winter the darkness lingers for months without end. No great city has ever stood here. No farms, no villages, no families call this place home. Only a few scattered stations of scientists endure, fragile lights against the endless white. And yet, not everyone believes this continent is nothing more than ice. For centuries, old maps and whispered legends have hinted at secrets hidden beneath its frozen crust. Some imagine the remnants of a forbidden civilization, sealed away by time, erased from memory but not from existence. And what if, one day, humanity acted not by chance but by intention, deliberately breaking the ice to unearth what has slept for ages? In 1959, the nations of the world signed the Antarctic Treaty. They declared that no army would march here, no nation would claim it, and no company would exploit its hidden wealth. More than 30 years later, in 1991, the Madrid Protocol renewed that promise, forbidding mining or commercial activity until at least 2048. Officially, Antarctica was to remain a sanctuary for science, untouched by greed. But the choice to seal off an entire continent is striking. Was it truly only about preserving nature, or was it also about keeping something else safely buried? Antarctica is far from barren. Locked within its glaciers is most of the world's fresh water. Beneath the surface, surveys suggest deposits of coal, oil, and rare minerals that modern nations quietly desire. This land is also the richest hunting ground for meteorites on Earth. Preserved by the cold, these stones fall from the sky and remain intact, some carrying chemical signatures that hint at life beyond our planet. To forbid access to such wealth suggests that the stakes are higher than science alone admits. Even long before explorers first set foot here in 1820, ancient maps already hinted at a mysterious southern land. Some showed coastlines and rivers where none should have been, as if echoes of knowledge had survived from an age long forgotten. And so the question lingers: what would happen if humanity chose not to leave the silence intact, but to break it? The drills might uncover only minerals, microbes, or strange lines on a radar screen, but the ice might also part to reveal something impossible. A wall too perfect to be natural, a chamber long sealed, a relic of minds far older than our own. To pierce the stillness of Antarctica is to risk awakening what it has guarded for ages. It may bring wisdom beyond measure, or it may release dangers buried for a reason. If humanity breaks the seal, what will rise to meet us? A gift or a warning? If you enjoy drifting into the mysteries of lost worlds and hidden history, please like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Now let us go deeper into the secrets of Antarctica. Scattered through old maps, deep ice cores, hidden mountain ranges, and the journals of explorers are fragments that do not fit the familiar picture of Antarctica. These clues point to a deeper story, one that stretches back millions of years, and perhaps into the memory of civilizations now lost. Each piece can be doubted on its own, but together they form a trail that leads straight into mystery, and toward the unsettling thought that something once thrived where only ice remains. The first clues came not from modern science, but from the early age of exploration. In 1513, the Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis drew a map that combined the knowledge of sailors with fragments of older charts. To the surprise of later scholars, the map showed the outline of South America with remarkable accuracy. What stirred the greatest debate, however, was what appeared farther south. Along the bottom edge of the parchment was the faint line of a coastline that resembled Antarctica, and it looked free of ice. Nearly 20 years later, in 1531, the French cartographer Oronteus Phineus created another world map. His chart displayed a southern continent marked with rivers and mountains, details that echoed features discovered centuries later. By 1569, Mercator's great projection spread Terra Australis Incognita across the globe, imagined as a massive landmass balancing the Earth. How could 16th century mapmakers have drawn a continent no one had reached, one hidden under ice for thousands of years? Some argue these were errors, guesses to fill blank spaces, Others suggest they may have been working from sources now lost. If so, who created those originals, and when? And if they were indeed depicting Antarctica before the ice, could they have been copying knowledge passed down from an earlier civilization? Atlantis has also been tied to these stories. While Plato placed it in the Atlantic, later theories imagined it slipping farther south, swallowed by the ice of Antarctica. These myths cannot be proven, yet they endure, because they hint at a link between human memory and lands we can no longer reach. If such legends overlap with maps, they may be whispers of something humanity once knew, and then forgot. Modern science has added its own revelations. In 2017, a team from the Alfred Wegener Institute drilled deep into the ice and studied cores that preserved the climate of the distant past. What they found was astonishing. 90 million years ago, Antarctica was not a wasteland of ice, but a rainforest. Fossilized pollen, spores, and chemical traces showed a warm and humid climate. Towering trees grew thick across the land. Rivers carried water through valleys alive with ferns, flowers, and life. This discovery reshaped our view of Earth's climate history. It also opened the imagination. If Antarctica once held lush forests and thriving ecosystems, could it also have supported something more? Even the life of a civilization erased when the world grew cold. Technology has pushed even further into the hidden interior. Using radar and satellites, scientists from NASA and the European Space Agency mapped vast regions beneath the ice. In Wilkes Land, they detected strange patterns, block-like structures, and a magnetic anomaly 200 miles wide. Some interpret these as natural geology. Others wonder if they could be the buried remains of something immense, perhaps even a city swallowed by ice. The images are not clear enough to give answers, but they are enough to raise questions. Why do the shapes look so regular? Why does the magnetic field shift so strongly in one place? Nature can create wonders, but the possibility of design lingers in the mind. If those are ruins, then unearthing them would mean humanity is no longer searching for fossils, but for a civilization frozen in place. Another mystery lies in the Gamburtsev Mountains, arranged the size of the Alps, buried under more than a kilometre of ice. Soviet scientists discovered them in the mid-20th century. To their surprise, the peaks looked young and sharp rather than worn down. Such freshness suggested they had been buried suddenly, preserved before erosion could soften them. How could such a vast mountain chain remain hidden for so long, and what event could have covered it so quickly? Some propose that a sudden climate shift froze the land almost overnight. Others point to the chance of a global catastrophe. Whatever the cause, the mountains remain a reminder that Antarctica has not always been what it is now, and that entire landscapes can vanish without warning. Not far away, other shapes have stirred even more debate. In the Ellsworth Mountains, satellite images revealed peaks that rise in sharp triangles, their sides smooth, their angles strikingly regular. Geologists explain them as natural formations, carved by wind and ice. Yet their symmetry lingers in the mind, for they look less like eroded ridges and more like pyramids. To many, they are nothing more than tricks of perception, mountains dressed in snow. To others, they are monuments buried in silence, remnants of a civilization that once raised stone toward the sky. The question has never been resolved, but the image of pyramids beneath the ice continues to haunt imagination. If they are truly man-made, then Antarctica does not simply hide geology, it hides history. Even the journals of explorers add to the mystery. Admiral Richard Byrd, who led expeditions in the 1,000, 930 seconds and 40 seconds, kept detailed logs. Among the official reports are claims later linked to his name that describe warm valleys, patches of green, and vast structures hidden beneath the ice. Historians argue about the authenticity of these accounts. Some dismiss them as later fabrications, yet the stories remain, painting a picture of a land that, even in the modern age, may conceal more than we are ready to face. They also remind us of the central question: what if explorers truly glimpse traces of a lost civilization, and what if humanity one day chooses to uncover them deliberately? Evidence also comes from the sky. More than half of all meteorites ever recovered have been found in Antarctica, preserved by the cold and gathered by the wind. In 1984, A fragment called Allen Hills 84001 was discovered there. When scientists examined it, they found structures that some believed were fossilized microbes, perhaps of Martian origin. The claim sparked fierce debate, but it showed that Antarctica is more than a frozen desert. It is a vault, keeping messages from deep time, even from beyond our planet. And if it can preserve traces of alien life, could it not also preserve the remains of a civilization from our own forgotten past? When these fragments are gathered together, Antarctica no longer looks like a land of certainty. It looks like a continent of questions. Each clue may be doubted on its own, but together they suggest a story erased, a memory almost lost. And so we reach the larger question. What if these are not mistakes, distortions, or myths? What if they are fading traces of a civilization that once lived in the far south, thriving in a time when Antarctica was green? If such a people existed, they have been buried so completely that only scattered hints remain. No ruins stand above the ice. No records survive in our history. Only whispers in maps, in frozen cores, in radar shadows, in myths, and in the stories of explorers. If they were real, what destroyed them? What power could sweep away a civilization so completely that even memory vanished? And if it happened once, what would stop it from happening again? Stay with us as we drift further into the mystery and search for what may still lie hidden beneath the frozen silence of Antarctica. To imagine Antarctica only as an endless sheet of ice is to miss the places where people have already dared to pierce its frozen skin. For decades, scientists have drilled, melted, and tunneled into its depths, looking for secrets locked away. Each attempt has revealed something unexpected, as if the continent allows only glimpses of what lies beneath. And yet, those glimpses suggest that if humanity were to dig with clear intent, not simply for science but for ambition, the discoveries could alter our future. One of the most remarkable examples lies almost 4 kilometers below the surface. Lake Vostok is one of the largest subglacial lakes on Earth, sealed from sunlight for more than 15 million years. In 2012, Russian scientists finally reached its untouched waters. Within the samples were traces of microbial life that had adapted to crushing pressure, complete darkness, and strange chemical conditions. It was proof that life can endure where we once thought it impossible. In a place that's silent, the idea lingers that the ice might preserve more than organisms. It could guard something made, something meant to last. Lake Mercer tells a similar story. In 2019, as part of the Subglacial Antarctic Lakes Scientific Access Project, a team drilled more than a kilometer down through the ice. They found not only microbes, but fragments of tiny animals, remnants of a past ecosystem sealed away. In nearby Lake Whillans, they uncovered entire microbial communities still thriving, feeding on minerals in the dark. These discoveries show that Antarctica's buried lakes are more than geology. They are locked chambers, keeping ecosystems intact for ages. If life can survive untouched for millennia, then the thought of other things enduring there, records, artifacts, even structures, does not feel far-fetched. Antarctica also holds fire beneath its snow. Mount Erebus, crowned by one of the few permanent lava lakes on Earth, hides caverns warmed by volcanic heat. In these caves, temperatures remain surprisingly mild, and inside, traces of unknown DNA suggest unseen ecosystems. These spaces feel like sanctuaries, sheltered pockets where something older than our memory might still endure. In the world's coldest land, warmth survives, and with it, the possibility of preservation. The history of human effort shows that drilling into Antarctica is not new. In 1957, the Soviet Union founded Vostok Station, one of the most isolated outposts on Earth. From there, scientists extracted ice cores more than 3 kilometers long, capturing a record of the atmosphere stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Officially, it was an act of science, yet the very scale of the drilling showed that nations were already willing to cut deep into the ice, not only to study, but to prove what was possible. That same year, during the International Geophysical Year, more than 60 nations turned Antarctica into a stage for discovery. Bases rose from the snow, runways were laid, and machines arrived to dig and measure. Operation Deep Freeze established McMurdo Station, the largest American presence on the continent. Cooperation and competition existed side by side. Every camp built, every drill sunk into the ice, was not only about science but also about presence. Even in a land of treaties, ambition pressed forward. The Cold War carried other experiments. In Greenland, the United States tested Project Iceworm, an attempt to bury weapons beneath the ice. Though the project was abandoned, it proved that governments were willing to carve into frozen landscapes for strategy and power. If such ideas were tested in the north, it is not hard to imagine that eyes also turned south. Antarctica was declared a sanctuary, but history shows that ice has never been beyond the reach of ambition. Science has also pushed the boundaries of what seems possible. Since 2005, the IceCube Neutrino Observatory has turned a cubic kilometre of Antarctic ice into a telescope. Thousands of sensors were drilled deep into the glacier, transforming the continent into an instrument for studying the universe. If we can use ice this way for science, the same tools could one day be directed to uncover something far less peaceful. The technology exists. The question is whether humanity will choose to use it for discovery or for power. There are reminders outside Antarctica of what ice can preserve. In 1991, hikers in the Alps found the body of a man who had died more than 5,000 years ago. Known as Ötzi the Iceman, he was so well preserved that his skin, clothes, and even his last meal remained intact. A single person, frozen in mountain ice, returned to us as if from another age. If this could happen in the Alps, what might Antarctica hold, where glaciers are deeper, older, and more silent than any other on Earth? Antarctica also serves as a vault for things not of this world. Since the 1,970 seconds, teams have combed its icy fields for meteorites. The shifting glaciers expose stones from space and preserve them in pristine condition. More than half of the meteorites ever recovered on Earth have been found here. In 1984, a fragment known as Allen Hills 84001 revealed structures that some scientists believed were fossilized microbes from Mars. Whether true or not, the discovery showed that Antarctica is more than a desert of snow. It is a keeper of messages from deep time, and perhaps even from beyond the Earth. Taken together, these stories form a pattern. Beneath the ice lie lakes that shelter life, caves warmed by hidden fire, meteorites from other worlds, and the record of Earth itself preserved in frozen layers. Humanity has already proven the ability to drill, dig, and search. The only question that remains is how far we are willing to go and what we intend to find. The imagination turns to a darker picture. What if the drills, built to search for microbes or particles, cut into something else? Not water, not stone, but walls too precise to be natural. Vaults sealed with intent, machines that carry a memory of power even after millennia of sleep. In that moment, exploration would no longer belong to science. It would belong to rivalry. The first nation to reach such relics would hide them as treasures. Others would hurry to follow, unwilling to be left behind. A new race would begin, not of rockets or satellites, but of technologies drawn from a civilization erased by ice. If you're still here with me, tap like so, we know you're following along. And if you've enjoyed this journey, please subscribe as we drift deeper into the mystery and face what price humanity might pay for daring to unearth the forbidden heart of Antarctica. Close your eyes and imagine the sound of ice breaking. A deep crack spreads across a silent plain, and in that sound is the weight of oceans waiting to be released. Antarctica holds nearly 70% of the world's fresh water, sealed in frozen walls higher than mountains. If those walls collapse, the seas will not rise by inches, but by stories. 58 meters higher, whole coastlines would vanish beneath the waves. Cities alive with light and sound today, New York, Tokyo, Venice, and many more, would become only shadows under the sea. Scientists warn that this danger is not distant. The Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica, often called the Doomsday Glacier, is already retreating. NASA and the British Antarctic Survey have shown that warm currents are eating away at its base. If Thwaites gives way, seas could rise more than 3 meters within a few centuries. The IPCC has warned that if the entire West Antarctic ice sheet were to collapse, oceans could rise several meters more. To pierce the ice by choice is not only to seek discovery, it is to walk at the edge of collapse. But water is not the only danger. Ice is more than frozen rivers. It is a vault of ancient time. In 2014, deep in the Siberian permafrost, scientists revived a virus that had slept for 30,000 years. It infected only amoebas, yet the lesson was unsettling. Frozen soil is not dead, it is an archive. Inside it wait forms of life our bodies have never met. If this can be true in Siberia, what might lie in Antarctica, where the ice is older, thicker, and untouched for millions of years? In 2016, microbiologists studying Lake Whillans found bacteria with genes for antibiotic resistance, proof that microbes from the deep can endure and still hold traits dangerous to us. To drill deeper is to risk opening doors into ages long extinct, and to invite them into a world of crowded cities and fragile lungs. The Cold War understood this fear. Declassified reports from the 1960 seconds show that both the United States and the Soviet Union suspected the poles could hide biological hazards. Some feared that ice cores might yield organisms that could be used as weapons. The treaties that protect Antarctica today were shaped in part by those shadows. To break the ice now is to awaken the same old suspicion. And the ice holds more than microbes. Locked within the frozen shelves are crystals of methane hydrate, fragile cages that trap a gas far more powerful than carbon dioxide. While frozen, they lie quiet. But if warming or drilling freeze them, they will rise in sudden rush. A single spark could set fire to the sea. Scientists call it a climate bomb, for methane multiplies heat with frightening speed. If the reserves beneath Antarctica break loose, storms would grow wild, skies would thicken, and the Earth itself would tilt into fever. What we would open is not a vault of treasure, but a furnace that could consume the future. There is another mystery buried deeper still. In 1999, satellites scanning Wilkes Land found a magnetic anomaly 200 miles wide. Many believe it is the scar of a meteor that struck millions of years ago, perhaps triggering one of Earth's great extinctions. If true, then Antarctica has already been the stage of cataclysm, where life was wiped away in a single moment. Others see in the anomaly patterns too strange to be natural, as if the ice conceals something immense, something built. Whether scar of a rock from the stars, or trace of a structure, the message is the same. Antarctica holds powers beyond our understanding. To dig deliberately may awaken what once reshaped the planet. Now imagine what happens if humanity ignores the warnings. A drill cuts into ice untouched for millions of years. Pressure is released, seals break. What rises is not only water but memory. From the cores may come viruses older than our species, methane that feeds fire, and perhaps relics hidden away because they were too dangerous to leave in the open. What if the ice is not only a grave, but a lock? What if it holds back the very forces that ended worlds before ours? If a nation reached such discoveries first, secrecy would not last. A single photograph, a whispered rumour, and the world would know. Then the race would begin. The lure of ancient technology or power buried in frozen silence would tempt every government to act. Armies may not march across the ice, but laboratories would compete in secret. Relics could become weapons, viruses could become tools, methane could become energy. Treaties of peace would fade, replaced by suspicion. Humanity would stand again at the edge of conflict, this time with forces it barely understands. The temptation is clear. To hold such secrets is to hold the key to global power, but to open them without wisdom is to invite ruin. History has told us this story again and again. Knowledge reborn can light the way to progress, but it can also fuel conquest and destruction. Antarctica may be no different. It may offer the greatest leap forward in human history, or it may release the storm that ends it. And so we are left with a choice that draws closer each year. Do we dare break the silence of Antarctica? Do we risk opening the locks nature has kept closed for millions of years? The answer may decide whether our future is one of wonder or one of despair. Stay with us as we drift deeper into the mystery and ask the question that lingers like ice in the dark. Will progress come before destruction, or will destruction arrive before we can ever call it progress? Throughout history, The return of forgotten knowledge has often marked the beginning of new ages. The Library of Alexandria, though much of it was lost in fire, still stands as a symbol of what might have been if humanity had preserved its treasures. Within its walls were said to be countless scrolls, holding maps, mathematics, and medicine from across the ancient world. When those works vanished, an entire universe of thought may have been erased with them. Centuries later, during the Golden Age of Baghdad, scholars gathered in the House of Wisdom. There, texts from Greece, India, and Persia were translated into Arabic. Knowledge that had nearly disappeared was reborn. It crossed deserts and was preserved for generations. These translations would one day return to Europe, sparking the Renaissance. The rediscovery of ideas thought lost breathed life into art, philosophy, and science. It pulled an entire continent out of the shadows of the Middle Ages. The same pattern can be traced in other discoveries. In 1799, a single stone pulled from the sands of Egypt unlocked a forgotten world. The Rosetta Stone, carved with 3 scripts, gave scholars the key to decipher hieroglyphs. From one slab of rock, the voices of pharaohs spoke again, and the story of ancient Egypt rose from silence. In 1947, shepherds wandering near the Dead Sea stumbled upon jars sealed in caves. Inside were scrolls more than 2,000 years old. These fragile texts reshaped how we understand the roots of belief and history in the Middle East. A few crumbling parchments were enough to challenge centuries of thought. The cycle continued in our own time. In 2010, scientists decoded the Neanderthal genome. From fragments of bone tens of thousands of years old, they revealed that part of that lineage still lives within us. What was once a shadow of prehistory became part of our living story. And in Central America, the quiet sweep of LiDAR revealed entire Maya cities beneath the jungle canopy. What seemed like hills and forests was shown to be temples, roads, and homes of a vast civilization. The ground we thought was empty proved to be layered with hidden memory. Each of these discoveries carries the same lesson. The past never truly vanishes. It waits, and when the seal is broken, it can transform the future. If libraries, scrolls, fragments of bone, or ruins beneath the forest can reshape human history, how much greater would the change be if an entire civilization were uncovered beneath the ice of Antarctica? Imagine if the continent concealed not only structures, but technologies beyond our own. Machines that harnessed forces of nature we have only begun to imagine. Knowledge of energy, medicine, or even the stars. The rediscovery of such things would not simply spark another renaissance. It could lift humanity centuries ahead in a single moment, pushing us into what might be called a super-civilization. But here lies the shadow that has always followed. Every rediscovery has carried risk. Knowledge reborn in one place has often been used to dominate another. The Renaissance gave us art, but it also gave us empire and war. Translated texts inspired science, but they also armed those who sought to rule. If Antarctica hides knowledge from an earlier people, the temptation to use it for power would be overwhelming. Nations would not see artifacts as treasures for all. They would see them as prizes to guard and weapons to wield. The thought grows heavier. Perhaps this cycle has played out before. Perhaps the civilization buried under ice once reached too far, grasped power it could not control, and was undone by its own creation. The sudden freeze, the silence that followed, could be the scar of ambition that turned to catastrophe. If so, then Antarctica is not only a grave, but a warning. It whispers across time that those who reach without wisdom may share the same fate. And so we are left with a choice not yet made. If the ice gives up its secrets, will we be wiser than those who came before? Will we share knowledge, study with patience, and rise together? Or will we repeat the mistakes of history, twisting treasure into weapons and dragging the world into conflict once more? The answer waits in silence, locked beneath the glaciers. But if the past is any guide, the choice will test not only our science, but our nature. Should humanity awaken the forbidden secrets of Antarctica, or let them sleep beneath the ice forever? If you found this journey meaningful, you can gently press like and share your thoughts in the comments. Even now, with all that science has revealed, Antarctica continues to hold mysteries that will not rest. At the edge of the Taylor Glacier lies a place called Blood Falls. From beneath the ice, a stream of water flows out, stained deep red as though the glacier itself were bleeding. Science tells us the color comes from iron salts that oxidize when they meet the air. Yet the sight is haunting, and the questions linger. How could such a flow endure for millions of years, sealed in darkness before finding its way to light? Some wonder if it is more than chemistry, perhaps the remnant of an ancient ecosystem hidden deep within, still alive, still waiting. And then there are the sounds. Instruments placed across the continent have recorded infrasound vibrations, too low for the human ear, but heavy enough to stir unease in those who study them. They roll across the ice like a voice from within the earth, patterns that no one has fully explained. Are they the groans of glaciers, the sighs of shifting stone, or something stranger, a resonance that hints at depths we cannot yet imagine? Even the sky has added its whispers to this frozen land. Antarctica is the richest hunting ground for meteorites on Earth, fragments preserved perfectly by the cold. Some scientists have speculated that among them may lie pieces from beyond our solar system, messengers carried across the void to rest in the ice. If true, then Antarctica is not only a vault of Earth's history, but also a page in the story of the cosmos. These are only fragments, but together they create a picture that feels larger than natural science alone. What if such phenomena are not only the play of ice and stone, but the fading traces of something left behind? Perhaps a civilization once lived here and carved its story into the glaciers. Or perhaps the traces belong not to humanity at all, but to visitors from beyond, leaving messages in the cold meant to be read only when the time was right. The thought draws us deeper. What if the world we call natural is also a world where memory hides? What if the ice, the wind, and even the strange red waters are masks laid over truths too large for us to see? We measure them, we explain them, yet perhaps they are more than they seem. And so the question lingers. If humanity one day dares to strip away the mask, to dig beyond what science calls safe, will we be ready to face what lies behind? Or are there secrets so vast they are better left untouched, dreams best allowed to rest in silence? In the long night, let your imagination drift. Picture yourself moving slowly across endless fields of white, the stars above glowing like lanterns, the ice beneath whispering in tones only the heart can hear. Here, where the border between truth and dream begins to blur, the mysteries of Antarctica remain, waiting. Perhaps they are gifts, perhaps they are warnings, or perhaps they are meant to sleep forever, sealed beneath the cold. If this journey into hidden history has stirred your thoughts, you can gently press like, share your reflections in the comments, and subscribe so you will not miss the mysteries yet to come. And now, as the night deepens, let the questions drift away with you. Good night.